everyone. My name is Ziqiang Cai from the University of Memphis. So here we have a lot of co-authors: Art Grazer, Whitney Bell, Qin Yuxin, Andrew Oni, Jiang Hu, Maureen Lovett, and Daphne Greenblatt. These are from 3 universities: University of Memphis, and the University of Toronto, and the University of Georgia State University. So these 3 universities are working together on a project called CISO, Center for Study of Adult Literacy. IES gave us $10 million to set up this center to help adults in the United States and also in Canada who have difficulty in reading. That may sound weird. Why do we spend so much money for adults? They should be able to read already, right? But actually, in the United States, about 1/6 of adults cannot really read very well. So this is a huge problem currently. I know many people here, when we see the presentations, they work on building learning environments for K-12 and college students. But we are different. We work for these people that are struggling. And we are trying, for this project, we're trying to understand how we can help the adults to improve their reading level. And the starting point of this project are actually based on 2 programs developed in University of Toronto. Maureen Lovett, she had been working with high school students to improve their reading skills. And she developed 2 programs. One is called PHAST, standing for Phonological Strategy Training, which is used to help students to pronouncing the words. And the second program is the comprehension program. She called it PHAST. So just to use this program to train the high school student to understand text. So this is it has been proved to be very effective. The effect size is 0.68, so it is very good. So, but we don't know if this will work for adults, but we don't have anything else to use because we use this as a starting point. And then there are many centers that help adults for reading, and there are volunteer teachers to help them. So for this project, we had several centers, and we had teachers, and we construct the course in such a way. Only this need to point here. Yeah, that's a really point here. Good. So we have the course was given. The course was given by 2 parts. The first half, or more than half, is in classroom, and the later half is computer program called Auto Tutor. I will tell you more about this later. So first, the teacher will give a lecture to the students, and then the teacher will guide group discussion and activities. Then the students will use our computer program called Auto Tutor to learn more about skills and strategies. That's what we do. I cannot show you how the teachers are giving the lectures, how the students will discuss in the classroom, but I do have a video to show you how the auto tutor part works. So this is our Seesaw Auto Tutor, a computer program.
Hello.
To the students.
Welcome to Seesaw. My name is Christina Valdez and I will be your instructor.
Hi. I'm Jordan and I will be learning with you.
Thanks for beginning Seesaw. Seesaw is designed to help you with strategies in reading comprehension. We will be using the Adult PACES comprehension program as a guide to becoming a skilled reader.
Great. I am happy you have decided to join me in learning to be a better reader.
Welcome to the Lesson 9 Nutshell. Today, we will clarify pronouns using the clarifying strategy. Pronouns are shorter words that replace nouns. Nouns are people, places, things, or ideas. Here are some of the most common pronouns that replace nouns. We will revisit some of these pronouns in upcoming examples. When reading a text that has a lot of pronouns, it can sometimes be confusing to keep track of what or who the pronouns are referring to. When this happens, we can use the clarifying strategy to clear up the confusion.
Let's look at an example. Here is the root word cover. If we add the prefix un, it changes the meaning of the word to the opposite of cover. If we add the suffix ed, it changes the meaning of the word to indicate something that has already happened. Here it is in a sentence. The detective uncovered evidence that solved the case.
Just different types
Jordan,
of
I am
auto
hoping you
tutor.
know the answer to this.
I have this one. It is orient.
Excellent work. You are both right. In this case, the root word is orient.
And there's also
Whitney,
another
what is
word
the meaning
called
of type
conditional.
here?
Whitney, we are in agreement. That is what I would choose.
Whitney. And Jordan, very good. You both got it. The correct answer of type is to write using a keyboard.
So this is a program we have been working on this for 4 years. In order to build this auto tutor program to help the adult to learn how to read, we are following some principles. We're doing this very seriously. You see, we have the strategies to teach, and we are following the principles to build the system. These are important things. For example, adaptive intelligent instruction. When we build the system, we are considering how to adaptively help each individual, and also how to select good topics for the learner. For adults, it's very different. They are not just young students. They have different interests. And we have been actually working on auto tutor for 20 years. I'm happy to present this slides here because when I look at this one, I didn't carry this one, my colleagues carried this one, but when I look at this, many of these actually were out of my fingers because I typed all the code into a computer. We chromatic this of a text analysis, and ASET, this is a tool to also auto-tutor scripts, Asaka also, and auto-tutor, and the mega tutor, and writing pal, this CISO, PAL 3, electronic tutor, auto-mentor, operation errors. I coded all this, so I'm very happy to present this one. But anyway, our group has been working for so many projects, and you can imagine how much money we have spent on all this. And auto-tutor is a conversational, intelligent tutoring system. We use conversation, we always use conversation, but our conversation is probably different from other systems. If a teacher talks to a student, usually teacher just talk and the student just listen. And for other systems, the student will ask teacher questions and the teacher will just answer the question. But auto-tutor is different. Auto-tutor used to question the student and to help the student construct answers for auto-tutor questions. So if you interact with auto-tutor, you will get a lot of questions from auto-tutor. And auto-tutor really answer your questions because you are supposed to answer auto-tutor's questions. So that kind of thing is different. And now, as you have seen, we use multiple agents. We call it trilogues. One agent is a tutor agent, another agent is a student agent, and then there's a human. So it's three. We have 3 agents to talk, and the 3 agents will carry different tutoring modes. We call it, one is vicarious learning. That is one, if the human student doesn't know the topic, cannot say anything, the teacher agent and student agent will just talk to each other and then to show what this is. And then the human learner will just learn through watching. And then there's an interactive tutoring mode, and there's learning by teaching mode. So we use the agents to do different kind of tutoring. And the most difficult part in building auto-tutor is the natural language processing, because this is a conversational system. So the user's input could be actions, click a button, drag and drop something, but mostly the user will type in something or speak something. We need to understand what the user's natural language input is. So this part is the most difficult part. And we also, the earlier phase of auto-tutor, we just talk and talk and talk. And now we integrate multiple media in it, so that the student can see and can also do. So there are different ways for the student to interact with the system. For this CISO project specifically, we design specific tasks and selected topics that are that the adults may be interested. So this one. Currently, we have finished 34 lessons plus an introduction, total 35 pieces of this system. And all the lessons are aligned with the paces, strategies, and also aligned with series. And Of course, just like any system, we log all the data, we know exactly what the student did, how the student did in each lesson. So these are just show the teacher's view of the student data. In last year, we conducted a feasibility study. The study shows that this system works. Although the strategy I just presented to you were used in high school, but actually it worked also for the adults. So these are the standardized pre-post game. So for different categories, everything worked. So we feel like it's good. So this is CISA Auto Tutor, but what does it do with MOOCs? And this is the definition I found. What's a MOOC? MOOC is Video plus Internet. I know when I just came back from visit to China. In China, MOOC is actually very hot. So many universities, they have specific places to record the videos for a teacher and then put onto MOOC. I think they develop MOOC courses very quickly. And we have been working on Auto Tutor for 20 years, and we have never reached to this stage. Because building, like for this CISO system, 35 lessons, we have built for 4 years. But if you go to China, when they set up a course in a very short amount of time, they just 1 hour is 1 hour. The teacher goes to the recording place, there's a booth for them, record it, 1 hour lesson, done. But we have done this for 4 years, for 35 lessons. So that's why using video, maybe that's the trick in MOOC, so use a lot of videos. So that is your lecture, right? But Auto Tutor is different. Creating an Auto Tutor, one lesson usually takes a master's degree student or a PhD student for about from 2 weeks to 1 month to get everything ready. So it's very difficult and expensive, but we hope it is more effective. So making this, especially like for this adult, they don't really read very well. So if you just give them videos, they may not understand, they may not be engaged. So make it conversational is a must. So we are thinking maybe replacing the videos by a conversational Auto Tutor system will create a better system. So that there will be, will that be called a MOOC? Because now we have C MOOC, we have X MOOC. Why don't we have a MOOC, which means MOOC with agents that can be adaptively help individual students. And of course, A stands for Auto Tutor. Thank you.
We have a couple of minutes for questions.
Just looking at your calculation, video versus Auto Tutor, I think these are two shoes. Huh? I mean, if you produce a video, it's just a knowledge transfer and lecturing. But if I know Auto Tutor well, it's much more adaptive and reacts on stuff. So I think it's not fair to say with video you can make the production very short, because I think Auto Tutor has a very different approach, right? So
Yes.
And what would be interesting is how far you can replace part of Auto Tutor with video content, but I think that's...
Yes. As you have seen, even in our CISO, we also use video as a review, a short video, not very long, to recap the knowledge.
But the expensive stuff is the logic behind, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And also we want even the video, we want to make it interactive. We don't want to play a long video to the learner. Instead, we just play a little bit of video and pause there and then talk. In this way, we think we can make it better. And also, more interesting way is the video is not linear. So we play up to here, and then we interact. Based on what the learner's response is, we choose another video. So the small pieces can branch.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maha Alfrey. I'm a doctoral student at George Mason University. And today I'm going to talk about the issue of persistence or retention. But what I want to do today is kind of take a fresh look at that problem, kind of examine the trends in current research, question the basic assumptions that guide those efforts, and then also look at the long history of persistence research and retention and see what kind of insights we can gain from that in order to direct future and hopefully more fruitful efforts in understanding this problem. So in MOOCs, we know that compared to last year, the number of MOOCs increased, the number of students doubled from 15 million to like 30 million or more, but we still have that low completion rate problem. And so this might sound illogical, but if we understand the context of this problem, then we can make sense of that. So basically, and really quick, I think we all know that we kind of move beyond the binary distinction between C MOOCs and X MOOCs. You know, there are different types of MOOCs, maybe in the near future, and A MOOC, who knows? So, but what do all of them share? What they all share is the basic objective, or what the MOOC spirit is, to provide education for those who are at disadvantage and to support lifelong learning. They are also open and accessible. There are no fees. They are informal. So the problem of retention or persistence, the way we look at it now in the research, doesn't seem like a big problem. But what about those learners who join MOOCs? So those learners, we know now, they have different goals for participating. They have different skills. We also know that they have different patterns of engagement, and those patterns are not unintentional. The participants come into MOOCs deciding to be passive or active, so they are all valid types of participation. However, the different goals made it problematic for researchers to kind of examine this problem. How can we measure those goals? Different terms are being used, different operational definitions are being used. Now, is this just a theoretical problem? It's not. I still think it's a problem, because if we use those measures as a proxy for learning, for MOOC success or effectiveness, then we need to understand this problem. We need to measure it. But how do we define it? That's the problem. So basically, after understanding all this and the variation in learners' goals and objectives, you can see three main camps. The first camp that tries to measure or identify factors associated with that problem. Cognitive, psychological, behavioral factors. Most of them use the basic, the total number of registration compared to those who completed the MOOC. This is driven basically by the abundance of data that we have. So it's limited, it's constrained by the data that we have. Then there's another camp on the other end that questions the validity of these measures and says, well, we don't even need to look at persistence and retention. Let's use as other measures like satisfaction, for instance. But then there's this middle camp that calls for the need to contextualize these definitions, reach a unified definition. And this is needed because if every research is guided by a different operational definition, then it becomes hard for us to kind of compare findings across different studies, because different study has a different outcome, and so it's hard to compare those findings. So in terms of contextualizing the outcome measures, we can see three main trends. First, just using operational definitions. And for instance, one study could say, well, if a learner watches 80% of the videos, they are considered persistent. They look mainly at interaction data, or there are other studies that look at psychological factors. But still, the outcome is provided by the research. Another type is inferring participants' intentions from their behavior. So it's kind of like a post hoc. So after they engage, they look at the data, cluster them, and then say, okay, those wanted to engage in that way, those wanted to be active, those wanted to be passive, but this is without any input from the learner. So we don't know if in fact that's how they wanted to engage. And then the last type of analysis is limiting the analysis to those who say, okay, I want to earn a badge or a certificate or whatever, and we limit our persistence or retention analysis to those because we already know what their intention is. Now, there's a number of issues with these types of research. The first problem is, and with the first two, you really have no input from the learner. They just assume or provide an operational definition, you get no input. The last one, while we get the input from the learner, we ignore all other objectives for joining the MOOC. And we know they are valid, but we don't include them in the analysis. And so there's this gap between our research on learners' engagement and goals and on persistence and retention. So here, what about the learner? What do learners think about dropout? What does it mean to them? So first, we know that there are a couple of studies that looked at those active and passive participants, and both of them were satisfied. Both of them wanted to engage in that way. So we know those types of participation or engagement are valid. Then there are qualitative research that asks participants, what is a dropout to you? And so, for instance, in one study, the participants said, well, the timing of last interaction with a MOOC is irrelevant if a person was able to learn something and reach their personal goals. And this is coming from learners. They do not agree with us on how we define retention and persistence. In another study, there was also the same kind of thinking about the problem, and learners said that meaningful learning is not defined by time in the course or completion, but rather by each participant's learning goals. So some might say, okay, if they're happy, then there's no problem. Well, we also know that some learners get frustrated and overwhelmed. So there is a percent of learners who need additional support or interventions. And also the studies that limited the analysis to those who said they wanted to earn a badge or certificate, only 22% of those actually went on to earn those certificates. So there is a problem. So just a quick look at the long history of research on learner persistence and retention. I'm not going to go through all these models, but what I want to say is a couple of points. First, we can understand that, so the first two models looked at the learners' retention and persistence in traditional residential universities. And then came a different model for non-traditional students, those who are in community college, and their argument was different factors affect them. So changes in demographics or goals also changes the factors that influences their retention and persistence. And then with the online learning, other models came out, and they argued that, well, the medium of learning also, we need to consider different factors. So the problem of persistence and retention, we know, is very sensitive to changes in demographics, changes in medium of learning, in goals and objectives of participants. They also show us that psychological factors such as motivation is a strong predictor of persistence and retention. However, the intention alone is not enough. Behavior, the actual effort students put in, also drives their choices to persist in college. So the argument, the retention versus persistence argument, is not new, it's not recent. For instance, in four-year college universities, they say that retention is an institutional measure, but persistence is an individual choice. Students persist to a goal. Also in the community college literature, the same problem. So they say one definition of retention, as it is applied to community college, is phrased as a persistence rate. Now, in community colleges, this is more helpful because it begins to consider other goals, so not just graduation. And Wild and Ebers, they also argue that in order to measure that retention or persistence in that way, we first have to ask learners to identify those goals and then follow up with them about their adjustments of these goals and then whether they persisted to those goals or not. So I'm going to move away from all the theory and all that, and I'm going to talk about what drove me into this research. So I ran a pilot study last year. The way I defined persistence in that study was to focus on those who said they wanted to earn a badge. And so it sounded good, and it was a perfect, I just assumed that if they say they're going to earn the badge, it's going to be the same goal once I give them the post-survey. The problem was there are a couple of issues that came up. So first, I had 2 surveys, pre and post. The pre-survey, you have the demographics here. I got a fairly decent response rate, considering it was 15%. I asked them about their goals in that survey. So do you want to earn a badge or not? And then I limited my analysis to those who wanted to earn the badge. Then in a post-survey, I had kind of a logic question where if they earned the badge, they get a different, they get a questions, and if they didn't, they get a different set of questions. So the problem, even before I reached that point, was that there was a steep drop in response rate, which is a big problem in MOOCs. And I'm guessing in even like regular online classes, like pre and post, there's always a drop in response rate. But for me, for the post-survey, or the pre-survey, I got 93. For the post-survey, only 16 people who said they wanted to earn a badge from the first one actually responded. So I'm not making any inferences here or saying it's a significant relationship, but it just gave me some insight that can help me kind of modify my research. So some findings. When I measured persistence in the traditional sense, where I included everyone who registered in the MOOC and those who earned badges, the persistence rate was 2.8%. When I limited it to those who earned a badge, who said they wanted to earn a badge and earned it, it was about 19%. Now here's the fun part. When I got to the post-survey, I got 16 people who responded to the post-survey. 8 of them, according to my definition, were persistent. 8 of them weren't. 8 of them said they wanted to earn the badge but didn't. The question I had for them, did you achieve your goal? 6 out of the 8 who did not earn the badge said they did. So what am I measuring? What am I doing? If I cannot tell them that you did not achieve your goal. No, go back and check yourself again. I can't do that. They told me they achieved their goal. So implications, considering all of this, and I'm getting ready to collect data for my dissertation. I just defended a few days ago my proposal. So the implication of this for my research. First, my definition of persistence is achievement of their goals. So I'm not looking at it, I'm not limiting it to those who just want to earn a badge. But I'm going to include everyone who responds to this survey. I'm going to ask them, what are your goals? And achievement of goals is what defines persistence in this study. Another issue in terms of outcome variable that is not in my study, but I think could be an interesting area of research, is to look at disengagement patterns, just like we look at engagement patterns. And so, for instance, Tinto's model, he distinguishes between the voluntary withdrawals and the academic probation. Or in Kimber's model, he distinguishes between stop out, drop out, transfer, different types of dropouts. So if this is happening in formal education, I think it would be interesting for us to look at those who disengage and kind of look backwards and trace their steps and see what happened and maybe find patterns. In terms of factors examined, like I said, studies in MOOC research, they either focus on psychological variables or on behaviors and interaction data. And I think we need to move beyond that. I mean, yesterday there was a tweet about a session that I did not attend, unfortunately, where they were talking about the intention behavior gap framework. I don't know if the presenter is here.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to talk.
Yeah, that was very interesting. When I saw the tweet, I retweeted it because it is a gap. We do have that gap. You know, intention alone is not enough. It has to be followed by behavior. So in my dissertation, I'll be looking at psychological factors, also resource management strategies or skills. I cannot include every factor that I think is important, but I'm trying to link the motivation goal with behavior. In terms of procedures, the implications of my pilot study is that I'm going to have only one survey. One survey, pre-post, never again. One survey. But the difference is this survey is going to be available to them as soon as the MOOC starts. That way I can accommodate for the different goals. So I would ask them, when you're done with your engagement with the MOOC, please fill out the survey. So it's not a post-survey where after they're done, like 2 weeks after they finish the MOOC, according to their own goals, I'll be like sending them an email and say, please fill out my survey. So I'm going to have it, so I'm trying to kind of look at the research that we have about learners' engagement and goals and try to use that in my own research on persistence and retention. So the human MOOC, the MOOC that I'm talking about is the human MOOC, Humanizing Online Instruction. It's for instructors and online designers on ways to humanize their instruction using the Community of Inquiry Framework. Starts November 14th for 4 weeks. I am going to be collecting my data then, so if you want to register and fill out my survey, and I will give you a $10 gift card. So I promise, just fill it out. I have a specific number of, it's a quantitative survey, so I have a sample size. According to my power analysis, I need a specific number of responses. So thank you.
You mentioned that you're going to have the survey available in the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
And does that mean that learners can always go back and like change?
No, it's they can only fill it out once, but
Is it towards the end? Where
no, whenever you finish the MOOC, you can fill it out. The reason why I have it from the beginning is because I have some motivational factors such as task value. So what I think is that, and what I do, is sometimes I would log into a MOOC, look at the different assignments, because they can't access the MOOC until November 14th. So they have a description, but they don't know about the specific activities. So what I think is like, or what I do sometimes is when I log in, I look at the activities and kind of assess, okay, do I need to do this? Do I not need to do this? And then I decide if I want to stay or not. So the reason why I'm leaving it is that I'm thinking someone might log in and look at the, the MOOC and activities and decide, well, this is not for me. And so that might give us some insight.
Just 2 comments to your presentation, and it's pretty much related to what I presented yesterday. So the first thing is that I'm not surprised that your learners say they have fulfilled their goals, because it has been shown that self-reported intentions are pretty unreliable. So we have to back up this with analytics data and see if they really did that. Yeah. The second complication is that intentions are constantly redefined, so there's also a moment of dynamics in there. And another aspect is, which makes it difficult to use intentions, we also want to do that, but is that there is also a time factor. So if the moment between measuring the initial intention and the behavior is very large, this also has an influence on that. So. Yeah. But I think you're on a good way, and I think we definitely need this mixture of not only looking at certificate-centric measurements, but apply.
Yeah. The behavior, the behaviors I'm looking at, they are based on so my studies uses the self-regulated learning framework. So I'm looking at specific resource management strategies that I think affect them, and I'm not looking at behavioral data from like learning analytics from Canvas. I'm using a survey to kind of measure that. In terms of goals, you're right, but hopefully because it's a one-time survey, the question is, what was your goals? That's the only open-ended question I have. And then at the end of the survey, the question is, so in your estimation, what % of your goals have you achieved? And that's the outcome variable that I'm using. Now, it's not, this kind of outcome variable is not unheard of. So there are other studies that use it, even in online learning, where they use that self-report data. But hopefully, because I'm using it at one point in time, that at that time they have their final idea of what their goals are.
But the second question I don't think is reliable at all, because they won't tell you what was their initial intention. You need to use a pre-questionnaire and also post, because otherwise people will just say, yeah, I originally wanted, but no, I achieved my goal. So there's also a kind of psychological effect of not admitting that originally you did want to go higher, but you did not do it. So that's a complicated issue.
That's true. I mean, we presented at the pilot study, we presented it at the European MOOC Summit, and one of our future directions was to follow learners' goals and how they adjust them. And I think there is a way we can do that. If I can focus on that area of goal setting, goal adjustment, and I think it's very interesting, and it's definitely on my to-do list. But yeah, I think for this, I cannot do everything in one study.
So I just wanted to elaborate a little on that, right? The unreliability of expectations. There's also, though, a sense in which they might actually be reliable. I mean, which is just a way of saying that you don't necessarily know. People are saying they want a badge because it's a signifier of learning something, and they may find out that they actually do the learning without earning the badge once they're in the environment, right? So there's at least that, I mean, which is to say we don't really know what those intentions mean. My bigger problem, right, the promise of MOOC research was going to be the huge N we get, right? We get all of these learners that we can learn from, and as you suggest with your surveys, that N can actually get sort of small, right? We're down at the end, you're like 6 of 8 students did this. So that's one issue. The bigger problem for me is the N of 1, which is the specific course. Do you assume from your study that we can learn something about all MOOC learners from the learners in your particular MOOC? This is a problem we have. We know that the quality of our MOOCs vary widely depending on the faculty and the design and all of that. So can we compare between the two is one question, and then the other is there anything in particular about your human MOOC drawing on a particular audience that might lead you to suggest maybe we can't generalize?
Okay. So in terms of generalizability across MOOCs, I think the first step that we need to do is define the outcome measures that we're using. That way we can actually compare the factors that we're studying in the different studies. Another thing is, I think we need to focus also, as we report on these studies, on the design, the contextual factors of the MOOC, also instructors, goals, objectives, like the description. Like most MOOCs, the research you read, this was an edX MOOC on computer science, and this is the total number of students, and that's about it. What we need to do first is to kind of provide a more detailed description so we can see what matches or not, and then also unified definitions so we can compare factors. That's the first question. The second one, in terms of the human MOOC, we ran, this is the 4th time we run it, and we've every year we do, or every time we run it, we collect demographics and stuff like that. So our population, they are mostly older, 35 and older. They are all full-time, most of them work full-time in online learning, and most of them, about 85%, have a master's or a PhD degree. So when I report my findings, I will be reporting, well, this is the population, and that way people can.
But we have, sorry, I want to add something to that, but we have a general problem of survival bias that we already filtering via the surveys, and I have a feeling that if we only focus on certificates, and by the way, you have a danger that with getting out an Amazon gift card, you also introduce a bias
Starbucks too.
to the survey. that we put another filter on top. So in the end, we're doing research about this small amount of people, and this is the big danger that we have.
Our first MOOC we ever launched, we really didn't know what we were doing. We got a lot of pushback early on, totally deserved. The post surveys looked great because everybody who was frustrated picked up and left. But if we just look at our post survey data, you could make a story that this was a very successful course.
Which was it also for these people?
Which it was, right, for this very small number.
I mean, so that's kind of why I have it from the beginning. So someone registers, and then they log in the first day, they don't like it, they sign it, they would say, well, I didn't achieve anything. My goal when I registered was this, but I didn't. So hopefully the timing, so I'm trying to, from the research, trying to implement some practical, and what I gained from this into my study procedure. It's really hard. It took me like 3 hours to defend this, but yeah.
Is the third presenter present? Because I haven't had somebody come up to set up for the third presentation. No. Okay. So we could keep going with this, and we can open it up actually to the first presentation as well in terms of questions. I actually had a question too in terms of what is, sort of building on that, what is the role of the instructor's goals in your analysis? Because it seems that if there's a disconnect between the student's goals and the instructor's goals, that they're going to be less likely to achieve them.
Instructor goals
for the course, right? So the instructor is intending, to teach, coding, and the person says, I want to learn how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. I'm not expecting that student will achieve that goal within this course, right? So,
yeah.
So where is that role in your analysis for what sort of the mismatch, I guess, between what the student's goals might be for a course and the instructor?
So our MOOC is what they call a CMOOC, so it's open. Our goal, I can tell you what our goal is not, or our attention is not focused on badging. We don't care what percent to get the badge. And so for that reason, I think we think all goals are valid. The course is free, it's open. Even if they tell me, well, we just want to have fun with this course, I think it's valid. I can't tell you what my goal is exactly. We're trying to promote a community, of practitioners and learners. But our focus is not on the badging, and we're not using it to promote anything or market anything.
There is an interesting question. I also get that very often as a reply. If I say we have to start from learners' intentions, but what about the teacher's intention? I think the problem is we are sitting in between. So we are looking at a non-formal, no, other way around. We're looking at a formal institution offering a non-formal learning opportunity. And if we transfer from a traditional course, our expectations in terms of a learner will reach everything that the teacher wanted him to reach. This cannot happen. I mean, it must be more open than that. But we just an article written just in review where we said, okay, you have this set of intentions or of goals defined by the provider or by the teacher. You have the individual ones, and they can match. They can partly match. They can absolutely not match. And it can also be that the learner has completely different goals, like getting into a network of professionals, which was not foreseen. So it's a very, very difficult thing to put these two expectations together. And we came up with 9 clusters of intention, behavior, relations, and also relations between what the teacher expects and what the learner expects.
I think going back to your grilled cheese sandwich metaphor, so in a formal course, there are grades, right? And then there are objectives, and it's not, these objectives are not suggestions. They're not like MOOCs, you have to do it. And so if I do what you said, then of course they're gonna get frustrated, push back from the instructor and drop out. But in MOOCs it's not really like that. Bring a grilled cheese sandwich, nobody's gonna say anything.
Right, but then if you're trying to measure if they've achieved their goal, you have to put it into the context of what it was that I, as the instructor, was actually trying to achieve, right?
No, my problem actually is, so I ask them about their goals and they tell me if they achieved it. Now the problem is, how can I measure these goals? That's one of the limitations. I need to check calibration, see if they actually achieved it, not just their perception, but.
But I would say you're right in the sense that the end measurement that we should follow should be real impact on learning. So what kind of knowledge, skills, competences have been improved via the course, which is in the MOOC context very difficult to do. Everything else we do is just a proxy, and the proxy is at the moment a certificate, and we're trying to come up with alternative proxies.
But I think, I mean, so trying to, bring in the first, if we're thinking about adaptive learning sorts of things, that's going to be very instructor driven, right? But the instructor is predicting where students are going to go wrong and where they want them to go, and it's, although it's going to be adapted based on the student, we have to think about what the instructor intentions are.
I don't know. I think Tutor will also take into account, for example, activities by other students, maybe. So it must not be driven by an instructor only. I don't know how this.
Yeah, for the adaptivity for Tutor, we just we want to build a system. It's not just based on the instructor. It's the Tutor system itself can move adaptively based on the student's performance. So every step we move, we need to evaluate where the student is, and then we go which direction we should go next. So that is what we mean by adaptivity.
But also based on activities of other learners, right?
Huh?
Not only based on rules that the teacher sets, but also based on activities of other users, right?
Yes.
So
it's not just the teachers
yes.
Goal, it's based on the students' performance. Yeah. And it's at a very low level, it's not at a high level. It's every step you move, we need to consider what should we, where you should go next. It's just like that.
But it's ultimately moving towards the instructor's goal based on the student's performance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's an interchange between.
For the instructor, we are still using human teacher for CISO project. For other project, we don't have a human teacher actually. But for CISO, this specific one, we have to use human teacher because the adults, this group of people is so different from the students, and they are very different people. And so we still need human to help. But we don't know. If you want to scale it up to have more people, you won't be able to find that many human teachers. So that's the problem. That's why we have to make it as a MOOC with people.
It's kind of like those, going back to the goals and objectives of those, like the apps that we have, the fitness apps or weight loss apps, like they pop up every day on my phone. I'm like, okay, I don't want to lose weight anymore, just stop it. But it feels like it's easy to do in a MOOC. Like, can't we just have them input, like, okay, this is my goal, and then kind of remind them, or like when they log in, this is your goal, or did you change your goals, and kind of track that. It's, I feel like the issue with this for me is the technical part of it. I mean, I feel like I have the ideas, but the technical part of it, and it doesn't seem hard. Like it's being done in other areas. Why not just do it in a MOOC?
So here's a crazy idea that maybe somebody could take the risk of A/B testing. So you want them to do the survey when they're last interacting with the course.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And so you're solving that to the degree you can by making it available all the time. I wonder if you could do an A/B test in which you had an I quit button on every screen, and when you hit that button, it pops the survey up. And whether that would actually lead to a lot of people quitting the course permanently, or
it's a C MOOC, and what we noticed is that usually there are two groups: those who stay within the campus and those who rarely go in just to submit assignments. And some of them even submit it through their own blogs, and so it's really hard to do it. We got these two different.
Right. Maybe I'll pitch this idea. One of ours.
What you admit in your survey is that? What you administer that in? What software?
So I'm using SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
I don't know, I thought about Qualtrics, but it's really a basic survey, so.
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to make sure everyone gets it, SurveyMonkey might have this feature too, but Qualtrics has an option where you can say, I want this list of people to do the survey. And then basically it will make sure it happens. So they will email people like, have you filled it out yet? They haven't, and then we'll follow up.
So SurveyMonkey has the same thing. The problem with that is because it's not a pre-post and a limited time it's available. So it's gonna be a long list of people who didn't respond, who might want to respond later, but I cannot keep emailing them every time and say, hey, did you finish? It's like pushing them to finish. Like I would just fill it out and say, okay, I'm done with this one.
Well, what you would do is, I don't know how it goes, but at the date by which they should have finished, you would say, Qualtrics, take care of it.
So yeah, the end part. So once the course is done, and we only have it available for one additional week. So my plan is, once we get to that week, I will send an email to those who didn't respond and like a follow-up. But also we're going to include, we have weekly newsletters, so it's going to be the first point. Hey, if you don't forget this. But just a simple prompt, and then go into like what we're doing next week in the MOOC. So yeah.
Well, since we don't have our last presentation, I think we can break early, but thank you all.